I'm back with the last part of my review of Frantz Fanon's Black Skin, White Masks. The title of the last chapter is The Black Man and Recognition. Chapter 7 is divided into two parts. The first part, Section A, deals with the Black Man and Adler, while Section B deals with the Black Man and Hegel. In this chapter, Fanon engages with the work of Alfred Adler. He's a very popular psychologist. He has this theory which relates to inferiority complexes and how they develop. One of them is that every human being has an inferiority complex at a stage in their life. That is when they are children. And this is natural because when you're a child, you're physically weak, you're small, you're dependent on your parents. Fanon uses Adler's framework to discuss the inferiority complexes developed by the colonized as a result of colonial domination. Me, me, me. The Martinicans are hungry for reassurance. They want their wishful thinking to be recognized. They want their wish for versatility to be recognized. They want to flaunt themselves. Each and every one of them constitutes an isolated, arid, assertive atom along well-defined rites of passage. Each of them wants to be, wants to flaunt himself. Every act of an Antillean is dependent on the other, not because the other remains his final goal for the purpose of communing with him as described by Adler, but simply because it is the other who asserts him in his need to enhance his status. Fanon argues that this inferiority complex that has been planted in them makes them seek white approval, white recognition. Fanon sees the only solution to this unhealthy quest for white approval and recognition as a complete destruction of colonial power structures, the colonial power structures that made these feelings present. Fanon also engages with the work of Hegel's master-slave dialectic. Self-consciousness exists in itself and for itself, in that and by the fact that it exists for another self-consciousness. That is to say, it is only by being acknowledged or recognized. My understanding of the master and slave dialectic is basically this. Two conscious beings meet. They have a kind of struggle. The one who asserts dominance, the one who subjugates the other consciousness becomes the master, and the subjugated becomes the slave. The slave is able to attain personhood through his labor. The master then recognizes the slave as a full human being. Fanon uses this dialectic and applies it in a colonial situation and comes to the conclusion that this can never be the case in a colonial situation because Hegel's slave is able to attain personhood and dignity through his labor. But in a colonial situation, it does not matter how much the colonized black person works, how much wealth he generates for the colonizer still refuses to recognize his personhood. So basically, in a colonial situation, black people are always treated as a means to an end and never as an end in itself, to reference Immanuel Kant. Since the colonized black person cannot receive that recognition, no matter how much work he puts in, no matter how much energy he expends, Fanon says they should stop seeking white approval because it's futile. Man is human only to the extent to which he tries to impose himself on another man in order to be recognized by him. As long as he has not been effectively recognized by the other, it is this other who remains the focus of his actions. His human worth and reality depend on this other and on his recognition by the other. It is in this other that the meaning of his life is condensed. When I read this chapter, the first thing that came to my mind was something that happened in 2022. Nigerian billionaire Tony Elumelu accepted an award of the Order of Leopold. This is an African elite, not just any random person. This is someone that is very successful, very rich, very established, but even he still feels the need for white approval. It doesn't matter if that approval comes at the expense of you, an African man, honoring a name which brought so much suffering to millions of people that look just like you. Of course, at the time he received a lot of backlash for the insensitivity of the whole thing. His apologist argued that the award in question was not named after Leopold II. Instead, it was named after Leopold I. his father. Of course, that's a very weak argument and does not make things much better in any way. I'm sure no Jewish person would be eager to accept an award named after Hitler's dad. Whether it was the father of the demon or the demon himself, that name is forever stained. That name holds a lot of power. It represents a man who 10 million Africans, enslaved many others, and mutilated many others. By accepting that award, Mr. Elumelu tacitly supported his own dehumanization as an African. Tony Elumelu never even deemed it necessary to address the criticism or apologize. Getting that white approval was clearly far more important to him than showing solidarity with his Congolese brethren. Fanon ends the book by saying this: at the end of this book, we would like the readers to feel with us the open dimensions of every consciousness. My final prayer, O my body, always make me a man who questions.